Have you ever felt like the rules of life were written by someone else, someone who knew how to bend people, shape outcomes, and stay untouchable, while you were left wondering why doing the right thing wasn't enough? There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout, a kind of intelligence that doesn't always play fair. It doesn't wear a kind face or speak in noble words, but it wins, it endures. And if you don't recognize it when it walks into the room, you might mistake ruthlessness for leadership and deception for charm. You might get outplayed simply because you wanted to believe the world was kinder than it is. This isn't about becoming cold or cruel. It's about opening your eyes, about seeing what most people refuse to see. That behind every polite smile can live a calculation, and behind every promise, a motive. Over 500 years ago, one man dared to write down what others only whispered. Not to poison minds, but to prepare them. Because when you understand power, you stop being naive. And in a world that rewards the sharp and punishes the soft, clarity becomes a form of protection. So if you've ever felt outmaneuvered, misunderstood, or simply too honest for this world, stay with me. There are 8 principles you were never taught but should have been. Principle 1. Adaptability over attachment. Have you ever held onto a plan so tightly, so desperately, that when it began to fall apart, you convinced yourself it was the world that needed to change, not you? There's a subtle kind of pride in wanting things to stay the same. We find comfort in what we've built, in the systems we understand. But the world doesn't honor comfort. It honors movement. And if we aren't willing to move with it, we get left behind, not with a bang, but with the slow erosion of relevance. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." To live well is not to resist this truth, but to become fluent in it. Adaptability, in the Stoic sense, is not about being agreeable or easily swayed. It's about maintaining your inner discipline while adjusting your external course. The Stoic doesn't cling to fixed outcomes. He plants himself in what he can control, his reason, his courage, his clarity, and lets the winds of change dictate the terrain, not his direction. Picture a man who trains every day to run through fire. One day, the fire never comes. Instead, it rains for weeks. And there he is, soaked and stuck, waiting for the trial he prepared for. Another man trains to run no matter the weather. When it rains, he learns to tread in mud. When it's hot, he conserves his breath. He doesn't glorify suffering or demand fairness. He simply adjusts and continues. In time, the world sees him not as lucky, but as prepared. Let's look at a more familiar story. You've probably heard of Netflix. What began as a DVD rental service slowly transformed into the global streaming titan we know today. But few talk about the in-between stage, the moment they saw that the future wasn't in physical discs, but in data, screens, and shifting habits. While others doubled down on what worked yesterday, Netflix rewrote its own script. It wasn't sentiment or loyalty to the past that guided them. It was clarity, and clarity is a Stoic's closest ally. They didn't hold on to the format. They held on to the mission. Deliver stories to people wherever they are. This is what it means to be adaptable, not to change your principles, but to change your posture. A Stoic doesn't remain rigid in form, only in purpose. You're allowed to pivot. In fact, you must. If your plan begins to collapse, don't collapse with it. Pause, rethink, adjust. Seneca warned that fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling. The adaptable choose to walk with fate, not be pulled by it. So ask yourself this: where in your life are you resisting the necessary shift? Is there a method you've become loyal to, even though it no longer serves you? Is there a dream you've frozen in time, afraid that updating it would mean giving up? It doesn't. It means growing into something stronger. You were never meant to stay the same. Seasons don't, rivers don't, and neither should the strategies you rely on. Hold tight to your values, but be quick to update your approach. Don't fear change. Fear the refusal to evolve. Because in a world that transforms without your permission, survival belongs not to the most skilled, but to the most agile. Adaptability isn't betrayal, it's discipline in motion. And once you've mastered that, you're ready for the next law of power, because what comes after flexibility is knowing who to become in a world full of shifting masks. Principle 2. Respect over being liked. Ask yourself this: when was the last time someone truly respected your boundaries? Not because they adored you, but because they knew you wouldn't tolerate being crossed. It's a difficult question, because many of us were raised to believe that being liked was the highest currency in relationships. That if people liked us, they would treat us well. That love would automatically produce respect. But what happens when liking becomes convenience and love becomes selective? What happens when your kindness is mistaken for passivity? Machiavelli, often misunderstood, offered a harsh but enduring truth. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. To the Stoic, this isn't a call to cruelty, but to clarity. It's not about ruling others, it's about commanding yourself in such a way that people know where you stand and what you stand for. Love, when unaccompanied by respect, becomes fragile. It can be withdrawn. It fluctuates with convenience, emotion, or opinion. But fear, understood rightly, isn't about terror. It's about weight. It's about someone feeling the gravity of your presence and the firmness of your boundaries. Seneca once said, "A man who fears nothing is not invincible, but blind." Similarly, a person who only seeks to be loved risks blindness to the power of quiet authority. Love is beautiful, but on its own, it rarely commands discipline. People may like you and still disappoint you. They may sing your praises and still betray your standards. But if they respect you, if they sense that disappointing you has consequences, they will think twice before crossing that line. Consider the story of a craftsman who trained under a relentless master. The master was not warm, he rarely praised, but he demanded excellence. The apprentice feared disappointing him, not because the master was cruel, but because his standards were absolute. Years later, when the apprentice became a master himself, he recalled not the gentle encouragements, but the unflinching expectations that shaped him. He didn't need affection to grow. He needed someone whose presence demanded he rise above himself. That is the difference between being liked and being remembered. In our time, one modern figure who embodied this was Steve Jobs. He was not known for his friendliness, but he had vision, and he refused to lower his standards to spare feelings. People feared disappointing him, not because they feared punishment, but because they knew he would not accept mediocrity. That fear wasn't rooted in cruelty, it was rooted in clarity. Jobs knew that progress doesn't come from being popular. It comes from drawing a hard line between excellence and excuses. This is where stoicism meets strategy. Epictetus reminds us, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." If you believe that being liked is your shield, you will live at the mercy of others' opinions. But if you cultivate inner authority, people may not always like you, but they will respect you, and they will remember that you live by your own code. So here's the lesson. Don't chase love at the cost of your self-respect. Set the standard. Make your values visible. Let people know not just what you allow, but what you will never tolerate. When others sense that you hold yourself to a higher discipline, they will either rise to meet it or fall away, and both outcomes serve you. You were not born to be soft-spoken in a world of noise. You were born to be steady. Let your presence speak before your words. Let the fear of disappointing you come not from intimidation, but from the weight of your self-discipline. Because when respect leads, love may follow. But when love leads without respect, it rarely lasts. And once you understand the true force of earned authority, it prepares you for the next great lesson, how to use time not just as a schedule, but as a weapon. Principle 3. Be the fox and the lion. Have you ever felt torn between being clever and being strong, like you had to choose between outsmarting your challenges or confronting them head-on? The world often makes us believe we must pick a side, either be wise and calculating, or be bold and forceful. But what if the truth is that survival, and more than that mastery, requires both? Machiavelli once wrote, "One must be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves." Beneath the sharpness of that phrase lies a profound Stoic lesson. Life doesn't reward the pure idealist, nor the brute force of the unthinking. It rewards the one who can hold both insight and courage in the same hand. The fox sees, the lion moves, and the wise man must know when to be each. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in his Meditations, "Look well into thyself. There is a source of strength which will always spring up if thou wilt always look." But that strength alone is not enough if your eyes are closed to the snares that surround you. Epictetus adds, "Appearances to the mind are of 4 kinds. Things are either what they appear to be, or they neither are, nor appear to be, or they are, and do not appear to be, or they are not, and yet appear to be." To move in this world is to know that deception hides in plain sight. The fox watches, the lion waits, but both must act. Imagine a man walking a tightrope over a pit. He sees the rope shake. The wind shifts. He knows panic will throw him off, but so will pride if he refuses to bend. He narrows his focus. One step forward, another. He must think like a fox, careful, aware of every detail. But if the rope breaks, then the lion must rise. No more delay. He must leap. That is the paradox of life's trials. There are times when precision is your salvation, and there are times when only sheer presence will carry you through. Now consider a real-world figure, Elon Musk. Say what you will, but when he set his sights on acquiring Twitter, many laughed. Some thought it reckless, others said it was a trap. He played the fox at first, strategic, non-committal, observing the board. Then came the pivot. Once the ink dried, the lion emerged. Bold restructuring, unapologetic decisions, shifting the cultural weight of a platform to match his own direction. Whether one agrees with his approach is not the point. What matters is the lesson. Without the cunning to anticipate opposition and the boldness to act when the moment came, none of it would have happened. He didn't rely on just vision. He used leverage. He didn't beg for approval. He acted. The Stoic doesn't admire domination for its own sake. What he admires is self-mastery in the presence of power. When you develop the mind of the fox, you see through illusions, flattery, distraction, and deceit. When you cultivate the heart of the lion, you stop flinching when duty demands boldness. Most people lack one or the other. They are either observant but paralyzed, or aggressive but blind. The true Stoic blends both, not to manipulate, but to walk through this world without being consumed by it. So, where do you stand? Are you watching from the edge of the forest, seeing every movement but never daring to enter? Or are you roaring in the center of the arena, unaware of the traps being set behind you? To be whole, you must sharpen both sides. Learn to read the terrain like a strategist and strike with the calm intensity of someone who has nothing to prove, only something to protect. Because life won't wait for you to decide which animal to be. You must learn to be both, silent when needed, unshakable when it counts. And once you do, you'll be prepared for the next truth. That loyalty, both given and received, can be the sharpest blade or the deepest trap. Principle 4. Perception builds power. Have you ever walked into a room and felt judged before you even spoke? As if the world had already decided who you were, based solely on how you stood, what you wore, the look in your eyes. It's unsettling, isn't it? But the Stoic accepts what is. And what is this. People don't respond to who you truly are. They respond to who you appear to be. Machiavelli put it plainly, everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. To the untrained ear, that sounds cynical. But to the disciplined mind, it's a simple fact about human nature. We are wired to make quick judgments. In a world of fleeting impressions and constant distraction, most people never go deep enough to discover the substance beneath the surface. And so the Stoic must ask, not how do I trick the world, but how do I present myself in a way that aligns with the strength I hold inside? Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. But even he, a philosopher emperor, understood that leadership begins with perception, the carriage of your shoulders, the stillness in your eyes, the tone in your voice. These are not vanity, they are signals. They tell the world whether you are awake or asleep to your own power. Think of a man walking through a dim alley. He wears no armor, carries no weapon, but he walks tall, eyes forward, every step deliberate. A mugger waits in the shadows, weighing his options. He sees this man and hesitates, not because the man said anything, but because of what he radiated: composure, awareness, presence. Contrast that with another figure, head down, slouched posture, headphones in, gaze buried in a screen. One looks like a fortress, the other a door left open. Perception shaped reality. This is not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about not giving others a reason to misread your strength. In today's world, especially in the digital arena, this principle is more urgent than ever. Every word you post, every photo you share, every response you give builds a version of you in people's minds. If you neglect that version, you let others define it for you. If you cultivate it with care, it becomes an extension of your discipline. There's a story of a young leader in ancient Rome. He was brilliant but quiet, often overlooked by louder voices. One day, after being bypassed for a role he had earned, an elder pulled him aside and said, "You carry gold inside, but wear the robes of a servant. Do not be surprised when the world treats you like one." From that day on, he made no changes to his heart, but every change to his bearing. Within months, the same people who had ignored him began to defer to him. He hadn't changed who he was. He had simply begun to show it. The Stoic does not seek attention, but he does not hide either. He walks into every space with intention, not to impress, but to express his inner steadiness. He knows that perception is the first gate through which all influence must pass, and if he allows it to be careless, he forfeits the respect that discipline has earned him. So ask yourself, what does your presence say before your words even begin? What are you silently teaching others about how to treat you? You may not control their opinions, but you do control the signals you send. And if this principle resonates with you, leave a simple comment. Perception. It's one word, but it says you see what most ignore. And if you found strength in these words, consider subscribing quietly, intentionally, so you can return for more. No noise, no pressure, just clarity. Because once you've learned to master the way you're seen, you're ready to master something even deeper, the unseen value of loyalty and how to guard yourself against those who wear it like a mask. Principle 5. Win quietly, not forcefully. Have you ever watched someone try to overpower a situation, raising their voice, tightening their grip, pushing harder, and still everything falls apart? It's a painful truth most learn too late. Brute force may give the illusion of control, but it rarely grants lasting victory, because real power doesn't come from how loud you speak. It comes from how wisely you move. Machiavelli's advice was blunt but brilliant. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. To the untrained ear, this sounds like a call to manipulation. But to a disciplined mind, it's a reminder that force wastes energy, while strategy multiplies it. The Stoic does not confuse noise with influence or pressure with progress. He understands the wisdom of restraint, the kind that knows when to pause, when to shift, when to enter through the side door rather than break down the front gate. Seneca once wrote, "A sword never kills anybody. It is a tool in the killer's hand. So is brute force. It is a tool, one that should be wielded rarely, and only when no quieter means remain. Because the wise man is not concerned with appearing dominant. He is concerned with achieving what matters without exhausting what he values. And often, this means winning before the battle is ever declared." Imagine a traveler approaching a heavily guarded fortress. The gates are sealed, the guards alert. Most would try to climb the walls, bash the door, storm the front, but the traveler waits. He watches. One evening, he notices the cook exit through a side door. A moment later, the guard leaves his post to help carry supplies. The traveler doesn't force his way in. He walks through a moment others wouldn't have noticed. No shouting, no struggle, just clarity, patience, and timing. That is strategy. In the modern world, we see this play out not in battlefields, but in boardrooms and marketplaces. Take the example of Toyota. When they sought entry into the American auto market, they didn't march in to compete directly with the giants, Ford, GM, Chrysler, on their own turf of large, powerful vehicles. That would have been war. Instead, they observed. They noticed an opening, a need for smaller, fuel-efficient cars, a space unclaimed. They stepped into that space quietly, effectively. No aggression, just alignment. And, over time, that strategic positioning not only gave them footing, it helped them rise to become the largest automaker in the world. This is the essence of what Epictetus teaches when he says, "First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." The Stoic doesn't act for spectacle, he acts with precision. He sees no glory in struggle for struggle's sake. He chooses what works, even if it's invisible to others. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still pushing when you should be positioning? Where are you trying to force an outcome when a shift in angle, a pause for timing, or a deeper understanding of the terrain would serve you better? Don't let pride pull you into battles that could be avoided. Don't waste your strength on proving how strong you are. Instead, sharpen your awareness. Learn to spot the pressure points others miss. Let others exhaust themselves with noise while you let the silence work for you. Because force may bend a moment, but strategy bends time. And once you understand that, you'll be ready to confront an even deeper challenge. How to read loyalty not by words, but by what people do when it no longer benefits them. Principle 6. Act before it's too late. Have you ever known exactly what needed to be done but hesitated? You saw the opportunity, you felt the truth in your gut, and yet, by the time you acted, the moment had already passed. What once felt like clarity now feels like regret. Not because you were wrong, but because you were late. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." And in that simple observation lies a brutal law of life. Timing is often more important than knowledge. To the Stoic, this isn't about chasing the perfect moment, but recognizing when the moment is already here and having the inner readiness to move. Seneca reminded us, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. But what he didn't say, what we must learn for ourselves, is that opportunity rarely announces itself with certainty. It often comes disguised as risk, wrapped in discomfort. Most people delay not because they don't know what to do, but because they want more signs, more safety, more permission. They confuse hesitation for caution. But the Stoic understands that courage isn't reckless, it's timely. Picture a man standing at the edge of a frozen river. He tests the ice. It's solid beneath him. A few steps ahead, there's a window to cross, to move forward before the thaw. He knows the path, but he hesitates, wondering if he should wait, if perhaps it will become even clearer, even safer. Minutes pass. The sun rises. The ice begins to melt. And suddenly, the moment that was once steady is now uncertain. He retreats, not because he chose poorly, but because he chose too late. The truth is, the difference between wisdom and folly isn't just what you know, it's when you act on what you know. Many people eventually come to the right realization. They see the value of discipline, of clarity, of character. But often they reach this understanding after they've already lost what mattered, after the relationship has ended, the opportunity is gone, or the silence has spoken too loudly. The Stoic doesn't wait for life to scream. He listens while it still whispers. There's a quiet story from ancient Greece of a soldier who stood before his general, waiting to be recognized for his service. The general, known for his fairness, simply said, "Had you stepped forward yesterday, the victory would have been yours. But now, the reward belongs to the one who did." The soldier was stunned. He had fought bravely, just like the rest. But the difference wasn't effort. It was timing. In modern life, the same principle applies. Consider how some businesses rise not because they invented something entirely new, but because they moved first or moved fast. Timing turns insight into impact. It turns intention into result. And it is often those who take the step while others are still thinking that shape the future. But let us be clear. Stoicism doesn't glorify speed for its own sake. It glorifies readiness. The readiness to act, not impulsively, but decisively when the time calls for it. Epictetus said, "First, learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Action without understanding is chaos, but understanding without action is decay." The wise man prepares quietly, but moves quickly, because he knows that clarity is perishable, and delay is its silent killer. So ask yourself, what are you waiting for? Not in the dramatic sense, but in the quiet moments, the choices you've postponed, the truths you've recognized but haven't yet honored. Are you delaying out of wisdom or out of fear disguised as thought? You don't need more certainty. You need more presence. Life will never line up perfectly. But the one who steps forward with disciplined awareness earns the reward, while the one who waits earns the lesson. And once you learn to move with time rather than against it, you're ready to understand what to protect as you rise, especially when loyalty becomes more dangerous than betrayal. Principle 7. Choose your circle wisely. Have you ever walked into a room, looked around and wondered not who you are, but who you've allowed to shape you? There are moments in life when silence speaks, not from within you, but from those beside you. You look to your left, to your right, and realize that the company you keep is either your reinforcement or your slow erosion. Machiavelli once said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." It's a sharp observation, and one that transcends titles and eras. The Stoics understood the same truth, though they said it in different terms. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And those thoughts? They're often seeded by the people we let speak into our lives. No man is an island, but not every ship that sails near you deserves a dock. To manage your circle isn't about arrogance, it's about alignment. The disciplined man does not surround himself with those who flatter, distract, or drag. He surrounds himself with those who reflect what he values: virtue, reason, integrity, presence. He listens not to noise, but to character. There's a quiet story from the Stoic tradition of a young philosopher who sought the guidance of an elder. The elder invited him to his home, not to lecture, but to observe. For hours, the young man noticed who came to visit, what they spoke about, how they carried themselves. Some offered ideas, others brought silence, but none were foolish. None were small-minded. At the end of the day, the elder finally spoke. "If you want to rise, do not build ladders out of weak wood." That was the lesson. No doctrine, just a room full of living proof. In our own time, the same principle plays out in quiet but powerful ways. You can often discern a person's trajectory not by what they say about themselves, but by who chooses to stand with them and who they choose to keep close. If you find yourself surrounded by people who mock discipline, who reward chaos, who treat growth as a threat, then you're not in company. You are in danger. But if you sit among those who speak truth without cruelty, who act without boasting, who pursue excellence without envy, then even in silence, you are being shaped by strength. Managing your circle is not about cutting people off in cold judgment. It's about recognizing that time and energy are limited, and your values deserve to be protected. Epictetus reminds us, it is not death or pain that is to be feared, but the fear of pain or death. In the same way, it is not disagreement that threatens a man, it is companionship without standards. Surrounding yourself with people who diminish your clarity is a subtle form of self-abandonment. So pause for a moment. Think of your closest 5 voices. Are they pushing you to reason or pulling you toward restlessness? Are they feeding your courage or feeding your comfort? The people near you will either sharpen you like iron or soften you like sand, and you will become, slowly but surely, like the company you keep. Let your circle be a reflection of the life you're building, not a remnant of the one you've outgrown. You don't owe your future to the noise of familiarity. You owe it to your highest standard. And when you have chosen your circle with care, there remains one final principle, the one that reveals whether all your effort has gone to waste or to legacy. How you handle your exit when power is no longer the goal, but the residue of how you walked. Principle 8. Decide with clarity, not comfort. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, not what's broken, but what's become too comfortable to challenge? It's a confronting question, because the real threat to progress isn't chaos. It's stability dressed as safety. It's the quiet decay of staying where you are simply because it's what you know. And by the time you realize it, the price of standing still has already outgrown the fear of moving forward. Machiavelli once wrote, "I'm not interested in preserving the status quo. I want to overthrow it." To many, that sounds dangerous, reckless, But to those who see beneath the surface, it's not a call to destruction, it's a call to decisive living. The Stoic doesn't cling to things just because they've always been a certain way. He doesn't idolize tradition or routine. He examines everything, his beliefs, his habits, even his loyalties, with the sharp knife of reason. And if they no longer serve virtue, he lets them go. Not with emotion, but with clarity. Seneca said, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." Inaction feels safer, familiar, but often it is the most dangerous choice of all, because when you preserve what no longer works, you don't just delay progress, you betray it. There's a story of a Roman merchant who ran a flourishing business selling oil lamps. For years, he thrived, until a new method emerged, cheaper, brighter, longer lasting. His apprentices begged him to adapt, to shift production, but he refused. "This is what we do," he said. "This is what people expect from us." Months passed, then years, and slowly orders stopped coming. Competitors rose. The factory grew silent. He wasn't defeated by failure. He was defeated by his success because he mistook it for permanence. The Stoic sees through that illusion. He doesn't fear change. He fears becoming so attached to what once worked that he forgets to ask if it still does. Decision-making in this view is not about emotion, it's not about approval, it's about alignment. What action best serves the truth? What step moves you closer to living by reason, not reaction? In our time, this might mean questioning a job you've stayed in too long. Not because it's terrible, but because you've outgrown it. It might mean ending an agreement, or shifting direction, or walking away from comfort to pursue something sharper, leaner, more real. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in teaching manipulation. It was in revealing how the world really works once you stop pretending it's fair or ideal. People often ask what makes a great decision. They want formulas, guarantees, but the Stoic knows better. Great decisions are rarely about finding the perfect outcome. They are about removing the noise of fear, of other people's expectations, of your own ego, and choosing what the moment demands with a clean mind. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." That's the essence of real choice. Not speed, not certainty, but integrity. Look around you. What in your life are you maintaining simply because it feels easier than the unknown? What decisions are you delaying because you fear regret more than stagnation? These are not minor questions. They shape the next year of your life, the next decade, perhaps more. The most dangerous place to live is not in failure. It's in delayed action. It's in the slow rot of the status quo. And the most powerful tool you hold is not control, it's clarity. Clarity to see what must be changed, courage to do it while others wait, and character to stand firm in your choice without needing applause. So if you've come this far, and these 8 principles have stirred something in you, remember this: mastery is not about knowing more, it's about doing more with what you know. It's about thinking like a fox, standing like a lion, moving with timing, choosing your circle and cutting through illusion. It's not a game of perfection, it's a life of discipline, because in the end, what matters is not that you followed every rule, but that you made your decisions like a man who refused to be ruled by fear. The Stoic doesn't wait for the world to give permission. He acts quietly, clearly, with a mind that sees, a will that moves, and a soul that refuses to be governed by anything but reason. And that, above all, is the final form of power. Subscribe to keep growing in clarity, strength, and Stoic wisdom.